Hi guys, this is the Nuclear Merc. I just wanted to give you a little heads up about this video, because I've never done one of these before. This is going to be Elden Yap. Pretty much where I take over an hour of clips that I've played in game that there's no point in putting them anywhere else because, it's just me trying over and over and over again. I'll just be yapping, for the entire time about just random topics and stuff. So if you guys want to watch it, go right ahead, but if you don't want to, this is the time when you should click off. Alright, let's get to it.
Okay, so first things first. One of my first impressions of Elden Ring was just this sense of wonder and mystery, because, of course, none of it, I doubt any of you know this, but, when I first started playing Elden Ring, I was on a all-in-one laptop computer screen, which essentially was, as I said, just a screen with a laptop built inside of it. So I couldn't really see a whole lot. So, any mini bosses that were generic enemies would be invisible until I got right up in their face. Which wasn't great, but I still beat a decent amount of the game with, without having that. Like the Knight Riders or whatever. Those guys, oh my god, that was horrible. But one of the first things I noticed when I got to the round table was all the axes and swords and stuff that were stabbed into the table. And my brain was like, it would be so cool if, as we beat bosses, their weapons showed up, stabbed into it or something like that. Never ended up being a thing, but still a great idea. And, there's just so much in the game that there was so much mystery and wonder, like going into the lands in between for the first time. Ranging from having to hold my hand, not hold my hand, but stay my hand because Vare was like, you're a maidenless tarnished, haha, get fucked. When in reality, I would find out, years later, well, I guess more like a year and a half, 2 years, that this fucker was probably the one who killed our maiden, and then fucking Seluvis did the creepy shit he does in his own little place, and whatever he did to our maiden, because that's, Riola or something like that. I forget her name. But yeah. So that was intense. First thing walking out of the catacombs, and you're like, oh, who's this? You get no bitches, and you're fucking undead. Well, okay, well, fuck you, dude. But it's interesting start to a game. And my favorite thing that I did, not well, unintentionally, I suppose I should say, was exploring but not. Whenever I would go somewhere and get curious, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to go in here and find out. I wouldn't back down. But, later on, after I had beaten the whole game, I would go back and find key places that I had obviously missed because I'd ran away because I was underleveled. And nothing, when I say this, I mean nothing feels better than when you're over-leveled in Elden Ring, after being so terrified after so long of getting absolutely brutalized by, a rotten kindred or whatever. I hate those bugs, by the way. So horrible. Absolutely horrible. But, yeah. If I'm just gonna rant for a second, I hate those guys. I wish that what happened to the Horn Scent and what happened to America happened to them. Well, but what happened to America's people and the Bible Belt and what the fucking Horn said did, I wish it happened to those guys. Those guys deserve nothing. They're a bunch of fucking horrible little creatures that have made me lose so many runes. It's horrible. I hate it. In the DLC and in the base game, they're absolutely horrible. Especially when you get magic roofied to that mine. Absolutely horrible. Annoying as hell. Can I also talk about that mine for a second? Yeah, nobody mentioned to me that there was a second boss in that mine. Not sure if you know that, but essentially, once you get on top of that building that you can hide in, and you jump over into the second area, and then there's going to be a digger guy who will slam his staff down and most likely kill you because you're under-leveled, and you'll go up, climb up a ladder, and there'll be this little plank you gotta walk across, and there's a rot kindred somewhere around there. And then, you go through, follow the path, and it's a fucking falling star beast there. I only found this out after, like, during my second playthrough, which was a little bit jarring, not gonna lie, because, you know, why the fuck would there be a second boss in there? Because I'm pretty sure there was already a boss. But yeah, let me think. Another thing I want to talk about is how some bosses are so easily forgotten, but also should not be. For example, actually, it's on one of the videos on my YouTube. One of my first Elden Ring videos on my YouTube channel was the golem that could fire fucking lasers. How come that wasn't used more often in the game? That is such a unique and interesting mechanic. And all the other ones get absolutely dogged by us because, you know, like, they're just easy because all their weak points are very glaringly obvious. I mean, like, their blood highlights where they are. Of course, you know, it's a game mechanic, but, like, you know, they just got the axes and the spears. Like, there's nothing unique about them. And then they decide to shove that one boss that can fire lasers and stuff in a mini dungeon. And from what I remember, the loot down there isn't even that great, and it's very easy to miss. So a bunch of players could have missed that. I mean, I can guarantee you there's like a small percentage of players that have found certain mini bosses, because I sure as hell didn't. I had to go back and like look up all the Limgrave catacombs and such and figure out where it all was, because running through, you don't really notice where everything is. Or even to this day in my second playthrough, after I went to the DLC, I'm still finding new areas, and I'm like, where was this? Another thing I want to talk about is how some of these talismans are just hidden as hell. Like, granted, in the DLC, there's one, the giant crucified man beast thing. It's right under its head after you jump off of it, which, you know, it's right under the head. It's not like on the ground. It's like right under its chin, which is a nice little hidden detail because, you know, we should have to work for everything we find because, you know, it is the lands between. Nothing is really ever guaranteed. But seriously, some of these talismans and charms and stuff are just so difficult to find. Like, there's some of them that even after beating the entire game, I have still, and like going through dungeons and catacombs and stuff, I've still not found. Like, there was one that increases vitality, like vitality only, and I'm still trying to figure out where it is. Like, it's like Thea's something, I don't know. But game has a lot to offer. Like, if you're listening to this video right now and you're wondering if you should get it, I mean, if you are a Souls fan, definitely. But if you're not really, you know, hardcore into persevering through incredibly difficult challenges, this game definitely is not for you. But besides that point, if you're hearing this and you're like, wow, that sounds like the game for me, dive right in, because not only do we have 3 different games, let me see, Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, and Elden Ring. I mean, they're all also not very different games, but each one of them has their own little quirks to it. For example, Dark Souls 1, it's a little bit slower, the enemies move a little bit slower, but they're still just as powerful as, you know, any other enemy. And it's a little bit harder in certain ways, and certain things aren't as obvious, but that's also where the whole story starts for the series, or at least that's your first introduction. If you do them out of order, it's not necessarily terribly important, but you won't really appreciate it. So I just recommend starting with Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, and then Elden Ring. I mean, if you want to do Sekiro or the Bloodborne, you know, I haven't been able to play those ones yet, but I assume you probably want to do Bloodborne before you do Sekiro, because Sekiro it's a little bit of a takeoff from the rest of them, because it's, you know, I don't want to fuck this up, but I'm just not going to touch that. But essentially, Dark Souls 2, it's a bit of a mixed bag. It's a fashion simulator with a ton of cool weapons and a ton of bosses. If you're really into fighting bosses, it's a great game. It's also very challenging. Dare I say the most challenging out of all the games. Just area-wise. You know, there's difficulties that just are honestly very unfair. Like, in certain areas, there'll be enemies around corners, you'll get jumped in other areas, there'll be bosses that will be mini bosses for that area that you've fought before. And truthfully, I started on Dark Souls 2. Went from 2, 3, then 1, which made me sort of sad because I couldn't really appreciate the storytelling because I started on 2, which, to be fair, 2 is sort of a takeoff because it wasn't directly overseen by Miyazaki. He gave it to someone that was under him, which it was still a great game, don't get me wrong. It just doesn't... It has nods to Dark Souls 1, but doesn't... It's not really the same story. Like, it's more of an adjacent type of story. But still, it's a very fun game, and well, challenging and very fun. So I highly recommend you play it, at least at some point. You know, because I don't recommend playing the newer ones and then playing Dark Souls 2, because Dark Souls 2 is very much so unique in many aspects, including the way the whole game is. You and everyone else are slow in their movements. If you're looking to be as fast as you are in Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3, you're looking in the wrong place. I mean, even the other day I went back into it because my friend was playing it, and truthfully, it's a fair bit difficult even after being a veteran of all the other games, you know? And one thing I do have to say about Dark Souls 2 is that it has, I want to say, the best, like, home base area out of all the other games, because, you know, it's a lot more... You don't feel like everything is so incredibly depressing when you're at the home base area. And, you know, it's got its own quirks. There's at least two different... Oh, there's also boss soul merchants. There's two different ones. One mainly focuses on spells, the other one is only weapons. And they're not in the greatest areas, I'm not gonna lie. One of them is right next to a giant sand pit, and the other one is in an area with a giant exploding mummy-looking people. So it's got its own little quirks here and there. You know, it's not an amazing game, but truthfully, it is a Dark Souls game, whether people want to admit it or not. You know, yeah, and they introduced a lot of interesting mechanics into it. Some of them people very much so hate, including myself. I don't adapt it. There is a stat you have to level up which increases your iframes when you roll. Not great, but you know, personally, I never had to really deal with it, because of the fact that I always had a shield and a giant weapon. And you know what? There are plenty of weapons in this game. I'm not sure if I mentioned that before, but the drop rates and all these weapons, you can get so many different weapons. Some of them that are even cooler than some of the boss weapons. Like, my personal favorite was one called the Malformed Skull. It's a giant-looking monster skull that you swing around like a club of sorts, and it's super strong. It's one of the strongest ones in the game, next to the chicken wing. And chicken wing is also a very fun weapon to play with. It's a gigantic metal drumstick-looking thing. It's called like the smelter's hammer or something like that, but people call it the chicken wing and that's what it looks like. But also, when I mean memorable, it does have memorable boss fights, and truthfully, only maybe one or two bosses are ever really repeated. You know, that's one of the great things, is that it is in fact a boss run game, where there'll be at least one boss in almost any area you go into. But you can bet that boss will be unique in at least some way. Like, I'm sorry, there is one boss that gets repeated at least twice, and that's the Dragon Rider. But besides that, every boss is unique in its own way, and, you know, of course, the boss weapons, while not all are made to be equal, some of them suck wiener, and some of them are just God's gift to Earth. You know, they're not all fair. You know, some of them are like, oh, this is a cool poison dagger, but it's not great. Oh, this other one I'm going to use to carry me the rest of the game. They're not all the same, but all of them are very fun, I can assure you of that.
Hey everyone, so there's been a decent amount of time between when I'm recording this voice clip and the last voice clip. I just beat Bloodborne. The video will be coming out soon. But anyways, a lot of thoughts on Bloodborne. Number one, enemy-wise, it was as bad as Dark Souls 2. It's not, no, before you guys come for my throat, and I know you will. I know you're gonna try and visceral me. The enemies were just relentless. Like, if you fuck up once, you're done. It's like Lies of P has a similar thing where they just keep hitting you until you're dead, pretty much. And unless you have a fuck ton of vitality, then you're just done for. Currently, I have 82 minutes left of downloading clips off this PS4 so I can edit it on my laptop. But honestly, some parts were pretty damn fun, I gotta say, and everyone will probably agree with me on this. The Chalice dungeons were not it. Like, they really could have done it, but such a better way. Like, if you've already done a Chalice dungeon, like, put a check mark next to it or something, because it doesn't work if I forget which dungeons I've done. And it'd be a lot better if they could just, like, tell you, like, which ones you've done, or, like, you know, which ones are, like, it says fixed and not fixed, but, like, as someone who's playing it for the first time, I don't know what the fuck that means. Does fixed mean there's guaranteed items? Like, you know, and then I only found my first item after I was like, oh, what's this? Some little add-on. Okay, I'll put that on, having no clue what it did. So Chalice dungeons aren't really the best, but, you know, I do like how they have unique little bosses. Like, oh no! Shoot, I think sorry. Just realizing that when I went to New Game Plus, I'm not sure if all the Chalice dungeons saved. I doubt it, but either way. There was this one Chalice dungeon where it wasn't too hard, it was like a good medium. Except for the final boss in the Chalice dungeon was a poison arena. Thanks, Miyazaki. A poison arena with a blood-starved beast. Now, thank God for the fucking Ludwig's Holy Sword. The non-boss version of Ludwig's Holy Sword, which it's kind of confusing when it's like the boss weapon should be called that, not the non-boss weapon. And speaking of Ludwig, like, I always thought, I was like, I never want, you know, I tried. Sorry, guys, 1 second. Anyways, you know, ever since Bloodborne came out, you know, back when I was a Game Grumps fan, which was forever ago, I was like, oh, that's cool, Ludwig, the Holy Sword, a haha British people meme, you know, all that jazz. Sorry, it's still funny to me. I was like, oh, fuck, that's such a cool sword. You know, I had two buddies introduce me to Bloodborne, and the whole reason I'm able to be doing this is because one of them gracefully gave me it. Shout out to Peter. Anyways, I have to say, I'm not sure if I've said this on the channel before, what I started out with for Dark Souls was Dark Souls 2, I believe it was 2, 3, 1, Elden Ring, and then Elden Ring DLC, of course, and then Bloodborne. Well, actually, technically, Elden Ring Convergence, sorry, if we're counting the mods, you know, Dark Souls 2, 3, the Dark Souls 3 Convergence mod, God, there was a huge gap of time, Elden Ring, the Elden Ring DLC, and then the Elden Ring Convergence, which isn't fully done yet, which I didn't realize. By the way, if anyone's watching this, yeah, the mod's not fully done, or at least not when I was playing it. But anyways, I had to stop playing that because I wanted to, you know, finish the game in a timely manner. And truthfully, it's I can't say it's fun because there are sections of it that are fun, but as a beginner, it was the roughest out of all the Souls games. I have not, like, Dark Souls 2, I had no clue how a Souls-like worked, but, like, at least there was a little bit of, like, sorry, just re-listen to this back. There is no hand-holding in Dark Souls 2, I'm sorry, but there is absolutely none. Like, that game, it was the first ever Souls game, and the only way I found out about it was because I was playing Skyrim and was like, oh my god, what's a Dark Souls boss? And that, you know, Dark Souls bosses in Skyrim, that's a cool-ass mod. You guys should check it out if you have Skyrim. But, you know, found out about Dark Souls from that. Started with Dark Souls 2. I don't know why. It was a terrible fucking idea. There were blood, sweat, and tears shed for that game. Because, looking back now, it is definitely, like, the enemies are the worst parts of the game. The bosses aren't even that bad. Like, I didn't cry over bosses. It was the fucking getting to there and the enemies that drove me fucking insane. And what's crazy, I didn't even realize till recently I didn't beat all the bosses in the game. But to go back from Elden Ring all the way to Bloodborne, to Dark Souls 2, it's a nightmare. You are so slow in the game. And if you guys are wondering, the only boss I didn't beat was the DLC area with the ice, like the twin tiger things or whatever is out in the snowfield. I never got there. I tried it, but I just couldn't do it. Everything else I beat. But anyways, moving on, Dark Souls 2, that was my first experience with a Souls game. Beat me down, kicked me, curb stomped me, all that. And then I went to 3, and I'm like, oh, well, okay, this is a lot better. And to be fair, I played at a friend's house, first, before, I don't know if it was before or after I played Dark Souls 2. I believe it was after I played Dark Souls 2, but regardless, 3 was a lot easier to get into because I already knew, how Dark Souls worked, this and that. And you know what's crazy? A little side note in here. I didn't know that two-handing weapons made it into, a combo, the specific, weapon style. I played all the Souls games up to Elden Ring and didn't realize this. Literally, my playstyle would be giant sword or giant mace, whatever. Shout out to Vort's great hammer from Dark Souls 3. A giant great shield and a giant weapon, and that would be it. That would be all. That would be my whole jam. But right, sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. Back to Dark Souls 3. I was able to do, my mojo. I got my mojo, got sort of settled into my play style of a Dark Souls game, which was giant shield, giant weapon. Ta-da. And then, a bunch of years go by, Elden Ring comes around. And to be fair, I did a little spell casting in Dark Souls 3, but I couldn't get into it. I tried doing a spell casting build, and I just couldn't get into it, truthfully. There's so many cool spells and shit, but it wasn't, maybe if I go back, but you can't go back to Dark Souls 2 if it's so hard. It goes from super fast, fast-paced Elden Ring, The Matrix, to, it's like when you're a kid and you run super fast, and you're like, wow, I'm so fast. And then as an adult, you're like, that kid is so slow. That's how it feels. Being a kid is Dark Souls 2. Being an adult is you guys get what I mean. But anyways, Dark Souls 3 was more of easy to get into all those, things. It also didn't have adaptability, which was a huge plus. But Dark Souls 3 also took a lot out of me. What was it? Night Slayer Sorig. Tears were shed. And yes, go lead him into the fucking the volcano, the lava, all that shit. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted a good fight. And of course, that wasn't gonna fucking happen. So eventually I led him over to the lava and that killed him. Which I only found out later. I'm like, this motherfucker took Black Iron Tarkus's armor. This motherfucker. So, which is why I recommend playing the Souls series in order. Well, Dark Souls 2, actually no, I would say go Dark Souls 1, 2, in the regular order, because while Dark Souls 2 has no effect on the Souls series besides, because it's more of a adjacent, it does have callbacks to the original game somewhat. And also it's a unique little game. If you're more less, it's a boss rush, where the run to the boss is more difficult usually than the boss itself. And it's gotta, I gotta stop, sorry, I don't mean to be glazing Dark Souls 2. It was my first ever Souls game, and it taught me fashion Souls, and I don't know, I just liked how there was a drop rate for everything that you could see. But regardless, but anyways, Dark Souls 3 out of the way, all the, it was good. I mean, the setting kind of sucked, everything was already dead, but that's how all Dark Souls, I take it back. Dark Souls 2, that's what I like about also Dark Souls 2, sorry, fuck you guys. Everyone lives, no one has to die. Everyone you bring back survives, no one goes hollow. But of course, Dark Souls 1 and 3, everyone dies, everything sucks, the end. I mean, all the other games. Dark Souls 2 is a little reprieve, even though it will hurt you more with the enemies and all the bullshit it throws at you. Okay, sorry. Anyways, moving on. Elden Ring. Now, at this point, I hadn't played any Souls game for years. And if you guys look back to see what the fuck I was playing on, it was an all-in-one desktop screen. Like, the computer was in the screen. And when you get close to enemies, they would disappear unless they were a unique enemy, not like just a random, random one. But, Elden Ring fucking got me head first back into this shit. Like, the weapons and everything. And the DLC, they could have... there's so many ways they could have done it better, We didn't need to have Mikola just, like, roofie Radahn and Moog. We didn't really need that. We could have had a better boss. But you know what? It is how it is. Just like the Jujutsu Kaisen manga ending. It is what it is. But I do have to say, and people are like, oh, the Radahn boss fight's a bunch of shit. You know what? Not every boss fight's gonna be perfect, There's plenty of bad boss fights. And sure, it's the final boss fight of the DLC, but, like, what else did you guys want? This shit kept ramping up. Mesmer, like, we should have all known the moment we fought Mesmer that shit was only gonna get more wild and more insane. And that's kind of, like... That's sort of how the games have been. If you played Dark Souls, if you were to do a fucking marathon of Dark Souls 1 to Elden Ring, and if you put Bloodborne in there, I would suggest putting it after Elden Ring, because it's along the same lengths of the speed of play. I mean, it's more you get ganked a lot. Sorry, I just said some dumb shit here. I'm recording over. But yeah, if you go from one to Elden Ring, every game it gets a little bit faster. Dark Souls 1, you don't see a whole lot of fast enemies, or if you do, it's just they're few and far between. Dark Souls 2 gets a little bit faster, some enemies get a little quicker. Dark Souls 3, enemies get a lot faster, it starts ramping up with this shit. And, and then we hit Elden Ring. Some of these enemies are like fucking Sonic, gotta go fast, and then they stab you in the back, Like, we've hit a crescendo. I think that we have to shut down the machine for a game and reset, because I think it's also just because of the limitations of the software that they couldn't have faster enemies. But, like, we shouldn't as a community want the games to get faster and faster to the point where, it's a feat to even get past the tutorial because things are just getting so fast and so difficult. Like, maybe we need to, like, roll it back a little bit. Like, Radahn, we should never have a boss fight like Radahn ever. Like, oh god. I should put a spoiler warning on this. Yeah, anyways, fuck. But anyways, it just, it was a fun boss fight, but it was a copy and paste. And also, you guys gotta agree a little bit that it's gotta be exhausting putting this world together, because there are, I can say this, I am autistic or whatever. The amount of autistic Dark Souls fans is, it's somewhere up there. I don't know the percentages, but, like, they're watching every move, every little piece of lore. And imagine if you take one misstep as the director of Dark Souls, they're just gonna be mad as fuck, Like, oh, you made it so that Ansbach, he's actually an amputee. And it's like, okay, we get it. Like, you can't misstep. So we're being a little critical of them. Sure, having it be some weird incest thing was not a great move, but it could have been a hell of a lot worse. I mean, the boss could have also been a little more interesting. I mean, there's no defending it. Truthfully, there's no really defending Promised Consort Radahn. In my opinion, it should have been something along the lines of, like, Mikola could have been more of like a weak Empyrean or whatever that just need to find a vessel. So, tearing out this bit of my flesh, this. So he's tearing away his being. That way he can implant his body into, oh god, what's the dead fucker's name? Hold on. Okay, I just had my Amazon Echo. Don't you fucking respond. Explain. I forgot. I didn't want to have to look it up, so I just asked. Godwin. That's the bitch. That's him. We could have had Godwin, promised, what, hold on. Sorry, I had to look up the dictionary there for a second. It could have been like Godwin, Mikola's promised armament, or something along the lines where he takes control of Godwin's body And sure, you guys would have shit your pants over okay. To be fair, I haven't beat every boss in Elden Ring. I'm working my way to... Sorry, there's this meme. I'll try and put it up on screen. It's like, oh, fuck. It was a fucking picture of not Placidus X. Or it's the Lich Dragon. It says, oh, hell nah. It's Rich Dragon 40 stacks, and he's got fucking Tim's on. I'll put the picture up here right now. But I haven't beat him yet, because okay, disclaimer. The first time I played, I didn't get a whole lot of the lore. In fact, my friend who gave me the PS4 told me most of the lore, because I go through, I bonk, I want to throw lightning, I want to be essentially Zeus in Dark Souls. So, it's hard to pay attention to certain stuff, and I was like, oh, Fia gave me a hug. I kept the thing that she gave me the whole game. I was like, okay, sure, whatever, we're doing this now. And, she killed the guy, and I was like, oh, fuck, I didn't mean for you to do that. Or, I don't know, she killed him somehow. The twinned armor guy, gold and silver. And then she's like, oh, have you come here to kill me? Or at least this is what I remember. And I was like, she's like, well, you might as well just kill me then. All I heard was, just kill me then. So I fucking slammed my giant sword down on top of her skull and killed her instantly. Only to find out that she was like, you're an animal, you might as well just kill me. So yeah, that's what happened with her, so no fucking completing that quest. But then, I have a second profile that I'm working towards. In fact, I think it's the video that's shown right now where I beat the Elden Beast. Oh, spoiler. Where it's my... Okay, roll it back a second. Ever since Dark Souls 1... I always was like, okay, strength, faith, good. Dex, intelligence, evil. Because let's be honest, all the Dex intelligence are either katanas, backstabbing daggers, or some evil shit like, oh, the evil eye of Dragodax or whatever. It's always axe or whatever fucking, and it's like a giant spear knife dagger that's like, oh, this was used to stab the back of the great conqueror Dabingi or some shit like that. It's always. But, like, then for the holy strength, or, strength and holy weapons, it's like, this was bestowed upon the holy knight Marstingo, and he was the best knight ever and definitely did nothing wrong. So that was my philosophy through most of my games. Whenever I did Dex Intelligence, it was always an evil character. So, rolling it back, here's the problem, though. I did not save Nefeli in the first run, and I felt really fucking bad, and I was like, because I didn't know, I just ran through, I wanted to kill shit, because that's sort of the whole point of this game, is killing shit and learning more about the game. Unfortunately, she decided to just die under a bridge, and I did not get the chance to save her or anything. So now, in my evil playthrough, by the way, someone should really mention, if this should have been like a skeleton that says, shed your outer skin in order to be branded by the two fingers. Because I wanted to do it in my original playthrough, but nobody tells you gotta be buck naked to get burned by the fingers. Yeah, spoiler alert, you gotta be naked. They're not gonna grab you when you're clothed. So I did that. Actually, sorry, I'm misremembering. That was what I did in the Convergence mod. It's also a pain in the ass to get down there. I guess they really just don't want you doing the frenzy ending, but, Melina could be mad as fuck or whatever, I don't care. But, like, so that's the problem now I face, and I'm like, okay, what ending do I go with? Do I, mend the Elden Ring? Do I do this or that or whatever? It's a conundrum, but, so my evil, and that's the thing, is like, Dex Intelligence usually gives you some pretty damn cool weapons, especially in Elden Ring. Elden Ring breaks the mold where it's like, there's some faith I always had the worst time with faith intelligence weapons or strength dex weapons because I would always be missing one stat. In this game, it's not really any different. I mean, in the original Dark Souls game, the fucking Artorias' sword, you had to have your stats perfectly splayed out, which is a pain in the ass. In Elden Ring, they're not as bad with the, oh, hey, by the way, here's a... they keep it pretty simple. Like, oh, yeah, these weapons will have arcane. These weapons are intelligence. And they might throw you a curveball here or there, but it's not really going to be too out of the ordinary. Jesus Christ, I just remembered that I was supposed to talk about Bloodborne. Sorry, everyone. That was like a good 15 minutes ago. My experience with Bloodborne, I had two people, my two buddies being like, oh yeah, do this, do that, which was super fucking helpful. If you have friends that play Bloodborne and you ask them what to do beforehand, because, one of them was like, oh, level vitality, like all the way up. Like, first thing you need to level it as high as you can because you're going to get one shot if you don't. Super helpful because, in fact, that it didn't become an issue because, I had it high up. But, like, for example, what you'll see in the video, I don't know if this was the attack just, like, clips your health down to 1. But in the final battle, there's an attack that the giant space squid does where your health goes down to 1, or normally it's supposed to kill you. I don't fucking know. I don't know about it. I'm just a Dark Souls guy playing a Bloodborne. But anyways, it's unique, I have to say. It's not really, you can't two-hand weapons. You can't have a sword in your offhand. It's very gun or alternative in right hand, sword or something else in left hand. And that's not that bad, there are limitations of the time, but also there is something satisfying about just shooting someone in the face with a gun and then just jabbing which was crazy because, in most Souls games, you stab your weapon into them when you parry and riposte or whatever. But in this game, you just jab your hand into the gunshot wound and then just like, I don't know what you want to call it. You wrench it out of the wound, which is cool and really cool. But, anyways, and then there's, weapons. If you want to forego parrying, sure, you could just get the Gatling gun or the cannon, which I think is so funny that's I don't want to parry. I just want to explode shit. But, I will say they don't do a great job of really hinting at what weapons will need what, because they'll be like, oh, yeah, I was so excited to get Ludwig's, his glowy sword that... I was like, oh, I can't wait to beat this boss. And then it's both of my buddies turned to me fingers clasped, it was I was meeting with the council, and they go, we are sorry. And I'm like, what? They're like, you're gonna need to level arcane. And I'm like, I did not level arcane at all. Put 1 point into the blood category, the blood thing, blood tinge or whatever. But I put a couple into arcane, I believe. I think 1 originally. But then, of course, I had to level it up all the way. I had to keep leveling it up and not leveling any other stat up, because by that point, I had, I think strength had hit soft cap, maybe. No. I hadn't hit any soft or hard caps yet, but, I was more of trying to see, which stat that I level up would make the damage go higher. So I started going down from strength. I was leveling up skill and vitality mainly. But, it was a little bit of pain in the ass. But, I also don't really... usually with these games, it's oh, this weapon was made, with holy or part of the Golden Order or whatever, that's pretty straightforward. And I'm not really... Bloodborne's a gross game, I'm not gonna lie. I did not realize how gross it was until my friends once again turned to me and the council go, oh, this is actually how the game is. And I'm like, bleh! I didn't know. I just thought you drank blood and that was the cool thing to do. That's just oh, well, this is just a bunch of blood. I didn't realize it actually, came from somewhere, but I don't think I can say that on YouTube, or else I will get, I won't even get demonetized because I don't make money. I don't have even nearly enough, of the credentials to make money off of this video. And by the way, if you're still listening, subscribe, because I'll try and pump these out more. Please, I am very poor. Please subscribe and, whatever. But anyways, enough begging and back to Bloodborne. I will say it has one of the most horrific area design. Not the game. This one area, it's the Forbidden Forest or something like that, has the worst design ever. I had to go on autopilot because I could not remember what the fucking path was to this boss. And it's just literally one of my buddies was like, hey, you just gotta follow, go to the right, and eventually you'll find the way to the boss. And I'm like, thankfully I'd already beaten the boss by then, but there's a lot of hidden shit in this game. You could play the game 3 times over and you wouldn't find some of the shit out. I beat the game. I thought I had all the weapons. The normal ones, not the Lost or the Uncanny, which, that's disappointing. I thought it was going to be the Forsaken Blade, and it's like, it does a different type of damage, or it looks a little different. Then again, my hopes shouldn't be as high for a game that came out in like 2015, even though it is a damn good game. It is very exciting because you never know, the bosses aren't usually, I mean, they're pretty much, I don't know, they seem to be randomized. It's like, okay, I'm fighting a guy who's mixed with a horse now. Oh, okay, now I'm fighting the dude with a giant scythe. I'm fighting these three guys in cloaks that can summon shit. Oh, never mind, it's Mesmer's sons. Because one of them decides to go, oh, take this fucking giant snake to your abdomen. Which was a little bit aggravating, because I died many times to a fire lantern. But I will say a cool thing about this game is it's a little bit tedious sometimes, but the enemy that killed you, or the enemy that you need to kill to get your runes back, has glowing purple eyes, which helps. Because, I mean, I didn't realize how much Elden Ring spoiled us with all its features, such as, like, hey, here's where your runes are dropped. And truthfully, in Elden Ring, it's a lot more forgiving than Bloodborne would be. I mean, because there's a lot of enemies in Elden Ring that would kick your ass and would be impossible to get your runes back from. So, by the way, shout out, more like a shout out fuck you to the Carrion Knight guy. He's in the DLC. He can fucking, if you're not leveled up properly, he will ruin you. He's the Carrion Knight that has like the phalanx or whatever. He's just absolutely terrible. I hate him. I hope I'm not gonna Photoshop another him on the cross, or maybe I will, fuck it. That guy is the worst. Like, out of all the NPCs that I had issue with, like, first time it wasn't that bad, but my Dex Intelligence build, which is a fucking nightmare because I didn't level up my vigor or whatever, vitality. I didn't level that up a whole lot. So I'm not a glass cannon, but trying to use a mimic tier is a fucking nightmare because I have almost no vitality. But you gotta give yourself a little bit of credit when your mimic tier dies pretty quickly, but you don't, and you realize that you have all the skill. The mimic tier just goes bonk, bonk, bonk with whatever you've given it. Would you guys believe me if I tell you that as of right now, there is 45 minutes left of like the 80 minutes that like all those videos are downloading onto the flash drive, which is honestly props to Sony for making it so that you could copy and download clips onto a flash drive. Xbox could never do that, even though I'm a diehard Xbox player, except for I have a Xbox, PS4, and a laptop. But like, that's a cool feature, and not to mention the clip saving feature where it'll record up to 14 minutes back. Xbox makes it much more difficult because they're like, oh, this button, it is the screenshot and the recording button. Oh, you want to do one or the other? Well, good luck doing that because it's going to be a pain in the ass. But anyways, I'm not going to get into all that. Back to Bloodborne. I feel like a lot of the weapons, at least a lot of the ones I found were mostly like dexterity or I guess skill-based weapons, which was a pity because, I always start out with, strength usually because I like the big bonk. I don't normally like the slash. However, Elden Ring, I'm just going to touch on it quickly. Elden Ring, they do a good amount of like cool weapons with bonk and slash, or even the spells are really fucking cool in Elden Ring too. But yeah, like some of the weapons are like hard to fucking pronounce. I will say one of the things that was kind of a little disappointing was the mini flamethrower. Even though I hadn't upgraded it yet, it didn't hit like a flamethrower should, or at least it didn't feel like it. I don't know. And like, I did think it was a cool idea with the whole bullets. I mean, like, it wouldn't make sense if you have guns in a game and there's no bullets, but like, there's no bullet counter, but like, that was interesting. However, the one issue I have is, I don't know what it is. It's like, oh, you turn your blood into bullets. That mechanic absolutely fucked. Like, sure, I've used it a couple times, but the amount of times I used it on purpose rather than on accident is overwhelming. The amount of times I was in the middle of a boss fight and I go, oh fuck, now I gotta heal because my dumbass accidentally used a goddamn blood, the blood bullets or whatever you want to call it. But, you know, they could have... It's just the worst, because usually you're used to going up and down to select items like you would in, you know, Elden Ring or whatever, you know. But instead they're like, oh, you press this button and you take your own health away. I will say Bloodborne is a very unique game. You know, it's kind of like... Everyone's going to get mad at me and probably crucify me for this, but Bloodborne, it's kind of like Dark Souls 2. It's a bit of a, you know, I mean, it's not like Dark Souls 2 in many ways, but it's a bit of a takeoff. It's off to the left or the right of the Souls series, kind of like Sekiro. Sekiro's in a fucking whole other land. But you know what I mean. Bloodborne is more of just like an adjacent story, or you know, it's a whole different story, but you know, the same shit. But I will say it does have the charm of the Dark Souls 2 enemies, where some of the placements are it's just obnoxious. Like the worst one was in Cainhurst Castle with, I don't know why, like I give little characters personalities, like, oh, all these crying like women ghosts, and I'm like, these little fucking simp cucks or whatever that are throwing little daggers at me, or that are the little butlers. I'm like, I hated those guys. Oh, Cainhurst Castle's also a pain in the ass, because it's like, oh, you want to get to the boss? We're not going to tell you there's a boss. This area just seems like it's a giant, like, you know, I don't even know what you'd call it. It's a big old castle. And, you know, if you're listening, you're like, oh, God, I'm going through Cainhurst Castle right now. When you go up to that, there's a ladder in one of the big areas right when you walk in. You go up that ladder, go around, and when you go to the roof, you go up the stairs to the roof, go all the way to the end, and on the right, you can go down, and you'll see the way to go to the fucking boss fight. The boss fight, it was fun, kind of, but also... It was a little obnoxious when it came to the constant, you know, swords coming at you. Because in Bloodborne, like, or I guess Elden Ring, I don't think, like, unless you get smashed with a giant hammer, usually getting hit by something doesn't, like, stop you from healing. It, you know, it takes health out, you know, you'd heal less, but it doesn't stop you. However, in Bloodborne, it stops you entirely. I mean, to be fair, it's like a 0.3 second long animation, but still. I will say Bloodborne was not cruel. I don't think they did this, but like in other Souls games, I'm positive it's in Elden Ring, that the enemies don't jump at you when you're healing. I guess they implemented that later, but that was a nice little surprise of being like, oh, they're not trying to like absolutely just claw me to death when I'm healing. But then again, Bloodborne, you know, I mean, to be fair, you know, we've come a long way from having to stand still while we're chugging Estus, to walking a little bit faster, to then being able to sprint and then chug and still move. Well, not sprinting and chugging, but like, the mobility has gotten a lot better. I will say Bloodborne is up there with the speed of Elden Ring when it comes to like the fights, because it's like one of the only FromSoft games where one of the main enemies is just basically other people, you know? Like, I'm right now, you know, I'm in New Game Plus of Bloodborne, and I'm gonna go do Eileen's quest. Hello, future me, whoever may be listening to this video. Hope it wasn't too hard. I will be responding to this later. But, you know, I've heard that the final person you invade or whatever is spams their shooting, and apparently a poison dagger like strat is how to go. But I have faith in my abilities to kill anything, because, you know, I did a pretty good job. I mean, it took me only a couple tries to beat Ludwig. It only took me, I believe, 2 hours or something. Like, no bosses, it took me more than a day in this game, which they shouldn't. That's only become like a recent thing where it's like, it took me 2 months to beat Radahn. But truthfully, I'm not embarrassed to say this. The Nameless King took me 2 months. Truthfully, it took me 2 months, because I hadn't like upgraded or spec'd into any weapons that had like fire or bleed or whatever, and that was a damn rough fight. And to be fair, he looked fucking badass and he's very cool, and even the lore, he's cool. Some bosses aren't cool, and they aren't cool in the lore, like the giant singing giant singing corpse toad thing from Dark Souls 2, the Shrine of Amana. That was weird. Yeah, but you know, that Nameless King was a cool boss, cool lore, badass. Mesmer he was almost up to that height. It just more of the mommy issues sort of killed it. It killed all the badassness for me. Because he's just like a little lanky boy who's like, this is my mom. I got snakes in my body. Take this fire, you bitch. Stab. Like, that's how he is. And, you know, it took me quite a few tries to beat him. Like, in both of my saves. But, you know, the DLC gave me a good run for my money. But I think we should dial it back a bit for the bosses. They do not need to be so intense that, like, you know, the nerfs. Truthfully, in a perfect world, we don't need nerfs to games. Cough, cough. Fuck you, Overwatch 2. I will never forgive you. But, you know, we shouldn't be nerfing enemies constantly or whatever. But, you know, it's a Souls. And was there any boss nerfs in Dark Souls 2? I don't know. I wasn't playing it when it first came out. I only played it, like, many, many years after it came out. But, you know, it feels a little ridiculous that we have to, like, keep ramping it up. It's kind of like, perfect example, the Souls games are the Dragon Ball Z of games. Number one, the fans are fucking obnoxious. The community, when they come together, is great, but the worst of the community is just really the fucking worst. You know, bet they can't beat Radahn, bet they can't read Promised Consort Radahn, you know, this and that. But, like, just like how Dragon Ball Z started out with, you know, humble beginnings, so did Dark Souls, you know? Everything started out, you know, slowly, like, you know, these bosses, you know, this is a legendary warrior, this is a king, nearly a god his soul has been burnt out or whatever. Dark Souls 3 was the peak. And now we're straight up just fighting gods. Just like on Dragon Ball Z, you know, Goku was like, I'm just fighting these guys who have an obsession with me, or, you know, these giant dinosaurs. And then Goku meets, like, the creator of the universe. We should not get to this point. If we fight the embodiment of God, like, I don't mean a god, I mean, like, the god of the Elden Ring universe, it's just gonna be bad. Like, what was it? There's this Ashura game, I forget, I think it's Ashura something. You know, the guy who's fighting a giant god that's bigger than Earth, and then the ending is you're fighting the god. Like, that fits, you know? He's a god, they're a god. In Elden Ring and all the other games, we're just some random dude. We're just going through this destroyed world, living, killing, you know, what a boss does. Jesus Christ, what am I, from fucking 2010? But yeah, as I was saying, we can't keep ramping this shit up. Like, after a while, it's just gonna be like, we're fighting the creator of the universe. We can't beat them. Just like how Goku can't beat, you know, Grand Zeno or whatever. Like, it should have stayed at a certain place. It's just, the creators keep being like, we have to do more. And I guess that's sort of the way things go, but it doesn't have to be. We could do something else, you know? I don't know. It's just a thought I had, you know? I mean, I guess the series that did it best, or kinda, was Bloodborne. But then again, I don't know a whole lot about the lore. But from what I gather, if you get the secret ending, you fight a cosmic being of, like, unlimited knowledge, I think. I don't know. Don't kill me for this. You know, I'm not a Bloodborne aficionado. I'm more of a Dark Souls guy. But, you know, and then you turn to a squid. But, sorry, spoiler warning again. Which is probably, like, one of the, like, Bloodborne has no good endings. Either you die, you get killed, you know, you kill the hunter guy, or you become a squid and kill the squid guy. Like, there is no good ending. I mean, I guess that kind of also happens in the Dark Souls games as well, but, like, you know, it doesn't have to be weird. I mean, Bloodborne is just a weird game. Someone had a blood fetish somewhere. But also, it's not just a blood fetish game. It's It's got a lot of cool shit in it, like all the cool hunters and stuff. I kind of overestimated how many different, like, hunters you could meet in the game. Like, my first playthrough, I missed Eileen the Crow entirely, which, to be fair, fuck you guys. You know, middle fingers. No, I wouldn't dare say that. I don't appreciate it, the team who made Bloodborne, that you put an NPC behind a bunch of fucking barrels. And sure, most people like breaking through barrels. But me, someone who's like, you know, a little gremlin, who can't wait to see what the next cool boss is, I ran right past that shit. I broke a couple barrels, but they were the ones that weren't over by the window. And I didn't see it, of course. So I missed an entire quest line with multiple, you know, hunter fights. But, like, I was under the impression when I first, like, heard of the game that, like, you know, we'd fight many more hunters, like crazed people. You only fight a couple, and barely. Side note, I just noticed in game Gascon, like, not Gaston or Gaston, Father Gascoigne or whatever. I feel like I'm butchering the name. When you summon him, like, to help you, he is like a good 3 feet taller than your character. It's kind of weird. Like, genuinely, I don't have a picture for you guys because I already beat the boss that he would be summoned for, but anyways, like, a little weird, but cool. Nice little touch. I will say Bloodborne does also have some weird, like, if you play Dark Souls for the first time, you don't know you're supposed to talk to people and then get items and then come back and meet them in other places. Like, they're adventuring with you. In Bloodborne, I missed the entire, like, I got the item, the red brooch that's supposed to be with, like, you know, the father, Gascoigne. That's what it looks like. That's how I think I should say it. You know, the brooch, I didn't get that. I got that. Didn't meet his daughter or the little girl that gets fucking eaten by the pig. Like, this is what I mean. Bloodborne is very sad and just very depressing. You know, you're drinking nasty blood. Children get eaten by pigs if you talk to them too much and tell them about their dead mother. And I don't think you even tell that little girl about their father. But, like, you know, and then she gets eaten by a pig when she goes looking for them. That's sad. That's just sad. But I do think that the story does point out, like, an interesting thing that hadn't been done before. You know, with Dark Souls, 1, 2, 3, all that shebang. You know, we always see the aftermath at the end of everything when the rebellions have happened and they've been crushed or they've overthrown. Bloodborne, it's just another fucking day, but just significantly 10 times worse. Excuse me. It just, it's just, one day things got a little bit too much out of hand. And of course, the hunters will fix it. Although I don't appreciate getting shit on by every character that won't open their door or, goes to the cathedral. Like, it's not great, I mean, I don't know. To be fair, everyone's calling you terrible things and being mean the whole game. I don't get it, I tried to get into the lore, but a lot of it's just gross and some of it doesn't make sense. Like, if you have to ingest blood and it's just an endless cycle of, basically you got an old yeller, someone who taught you how to hunt, and then you use blood and then you become like them, and it's like, maybe we could just not drink the blood or use the blood, the old blood or whatever the fuck, blood for the bloodburn. I don't fucking know. But like, the whole game is just, God, I love blood. That's like the summary of the whole damn game. It's just, God, I love blood. But you know what? That's Bloodborne for you, It's, I can't say that it's not cool. I will say some of the drip choices, a little disappointing. Like, Bloodborne characters, unless you put mods in, they're ugly as shit. To put it plainly, the Bloodborne character creation is terrible. So, of course, I put a lot of focus into the eyes of my character and around there. Because it'd be cool, because, the outfit you see on the cover of the game has a little, mask over, your mouth. And I was like, oh, this would be so great. I'm going to find a bunch of these masks that are a little bit different. No, there's only like one mask that will show your eyes and nothing else. Every other mask, every other hat or mask or whatever shows your full ugly potato face, or it doesn't show anything at all. I don't know. I think I was definitely spoiled by Dark Souls 2. Like, fashion runway simulator, but with bosses and enemies that will shit on you more than the bosses do. You know what? Overall, it was pretty fucking fun, and definitely fun to be like, yes, I beat this boss in this amount of time. I will say though, maybe I'm just too cocky or something like that. I looked up. Apparently, the end boss it's not abnormal for them to feel easy. I mean, it took me one try, but then again, I had 0 bullets, 0 health flasks, and I had little to no health left. You guys will fucking see it. Oh shit. I definitely got to put a warning for that one. Shit. Sorry, guys. But you know, it was a hard-fought fight, and I didn't think I was going to make it, truthfully. But, you know, that's just sometimes how Bloodborne is. There was at least 2 or 3 different occasions where I was like, oh God, please, die, die, die. And I just keep slapping them with my giant sword. And then, you know, they die. I do think it's cool that, like, you know, not every summon is wildly different. Like, they all kind of look the same. I mean, you know, with a couple differences, but like, nothing felt better than attacking the blood-starved beast with, I forget his name, sorry everyone, where we both had these giant sledgehammers and we were just beating the shit out of him. That was fun. That was really cool, and I liked that. But I will say that some parts of it do feel a little unpopulated. And yeah, sure, you shouldn't have every corner of the game just completely just shoved full of stuff. And, you know, it was 2015, but I felt like there could have been a couple more characters here and there. I don't know, maybe it was a Fallout New Vegas situation where they were like, you know, whipping them, going, faster, faster, you know. You gotta, you know, this and that. Because I know Dark Souls 3 and 2 both had cut content, as does every great game. Which, you know what? Speaking of cut content, it hurts my soul when I see cut content in great games because it could have been better. But then again, it could have been implemented terribly. Like in Dark Souls 3, I believe at Dragon's Peak, I think. God, wow, look at that autism brain, being able to remember a specific name of a game I haven't played in like 2 or 3 years. There is a model of a giant like stone dragon that's like away off in the distance. I think Vadi Vidya, you know, shout out, did a video on that, and like, you know, I think they just didn't have enough time or couldn't figure out a way to put it into the lore. Something else that was really cool that Dark Souls 3 did, and then was like, you know, that shit never happened again, was Onion Bro. I forget his name, sorry. His whole thing, it wasn't about summoning him, it was the fact that you didn't summon him, that he had his own cutscene and walked into the fight, and it was a noble, awesome thing. I mean, to be fair, it was about fucking time, because every other iteration of him, Sigurd of Katarina, or Sigvard Katarina? Sigvard of Katarina. You know, all that shebang. He had the best ending, you know, the best ending if you did his quest fully all the way through. Every other Onion Bro fucking dies terribly. You know, either they just, you know, no offense to them, you know, Sigvard in Dark Souls 3, definitely the most capable. In Dark Souls 2 and 1, well, no, he wasn't even in 2. Dark Souls 1, he kind of just is bad at his job. And then if you do his full quest, I think his daughter kills him, Sieglind, and that's just fucking sad. But, you know, that was really cool how it's like, oh, you know, I Sigurd of Katarina, you know, uphold my vow to you, my friend. Like, it was such a cool thing. And granted, like, you know, it was a gimmick boss fight, which, you know, people shit on it, but it's a cool thing. You know, they did it better with Rykard, which, like, Elden Ring lore, there's some really cool lore in there that, like, you could just explore your mind with, like, oh, what if Rykard had absorbed, you know, Malekith? Like, there's just so many there's so many possibilities to think about. But you know, like, it's a badass boss that if you choose to not use the gimmick weapon, it is a slog. But, you know, not every boss should be an absolute chore to beat. Like, sometimes giving you a little bit of a help isn't always a bad thing. And I know all Dark Souls fans are, I believe it's masochists, where they just love the pain of playing the game. You know, I used to describe Dark Souls as a game that hurts you, but the feeling of adventure is what keeps you going. Like, you know, it's the pain of dying over and over again, but the sweetness of finally getting past it, which it's Pavlovian at this point. It's like, oh, you know, well, I just gotta beat this boss, and then I see those sweet numbers go up on in the corner of my bar, and it says, you know, prey vanquished, or boss defeated, or, you know, Elden Lord defeated. You know, Elden Ring and Dark Souls bros are just Pavlovian dogs. Like, you gotta admit it. You watching this video, if you're a Dark Souls fan, just fucking admit it. Or maybe that's just me. Maybe I've just been trained to play hard games until I win. And you know what? I know Dark Souls isn't everyone's cup of tea. You know, sometimes it's just too violent. And truthfully, before I was introduced to the game series, the idea of a boss having a health bar that, like, was massive and you had to whittle it down or try and figure out its weaknesses was unheard of to me, you know? I played Team Fortress 2, and that was my first fucking, you know, Team Fortress 2, Fallout, you know? Those were the games that I played, you know? I mean, to be fair, and also, like, when I was a super young kid, I played Doom 3, which, I mean, I played a little bit, but, like, all the games I had played before, you know, it was, you know, you were not on equal footing with the boss, but it was a fair fight normally, you know? If you just go into the boss room, you know, it should be a fair fight. But Elden Ring and Dark Souls and all the other guys, not so much. It's a war of attrition. But also, you know, for those of you who can extract the sort of a meaning out of it, was that just keep on going. You keep on going, and eventually the fruits of your labor will pay off. Unless you're one of those people who's like, I just must platinum it, you know, I gotta get all the achievements, you know, then you're just a little bit psychotic, because that's a lot. But good for you, buddy. Good for you for getting that. And you know what? I'm not gonna claim that the Souls games are you know, full of meaning and rich, because Dark Souls 2, some of that shit's just it's like a shepherd's pie you throw a bunch of random ingredients into. Some of the ingredients work, some of it doesn't. And then there's just the stray ingredient that makes no fucking sense. Like some of the employees, like Gavlan Wheel, Gavlan Deal. What the fuck? What the fuck are you doing here, dude? Like, you know, all the people that look like you were just killing, and for some reason you're like, yeah, I'm selling shit. But you know, I guess that's just a lot of merchants in Dark Souls, like the guy who has the Uchigatana. In Dark Souls 1? Yeah, that guy. Who, I don't know why, but like every time, he's a fucking weeb. I think he has it, he can sell it to you. I don't know, I haven't played Dark Souls 1 even longer than I have than 2 or 3. But, you know, I guess I can't shit on it too much for having random ass fucking merchants. I guess that's also something in fucking Bloodborne, is that since there's so many fucking games in the Soul series where if there's a humanoid enemy or an enemy that's not immediately attacking you, you might not want to hit it because that may be an important quest NPC. Almost every single time in Bloodborne it was not. Almost every single time. You know, maybe if the game was more how I thought it was, then maybe that's how it would go, but the only one you really shouldn't have, I guess, is really Eileen, because every other thing is undoubtedly trying to kill you. Undoubtedly. I guess something also to, like, point out is that, you know, I guess at least for me, the Souls games are, like, such a place of inspiration when it comes to imagination. Like, I talked to my buddy Colin, and I was like, hey, dude, like, I got this crazy idea. And essentially the idea was a bunch of Telltale games, but except for their, like, little pieces, like you're following a character, and whatever choices you make will decide what kind of person they become in the end. But you don't know who it is when you start off. And then, you know, they put a bunch of these, like over like maybe 15 or 20. And yeah, sure, that's kind of a fucking pain in the ass. But they're all Souls characters. And, like, for example, you know, one of them you're playing as Smo, and you start out as a little boy, and, like, as you go through the adventure, there's, like, oh, the easy option. Take the mysterious meat from the stranger, you know, take the mysterious meat from the gutter. And if you keep choosing to eat the mysterious meat, which makes it easier, you end up becoming Executioner Smo. The sadistic cannibal who really just doesn't give a fuck about anything besides murder. Or, you know, you choose the other option, and you become like Smo, Holy Knight of Lordran, or I think that's right. Yeah, like, you know, like he becomes the good or the bad version. And one crazy fucking... I actually had a dream about this. It was High Lord Wolnir, and in my fucking dream, instead of being a giant skeleton with the things of clerics around his wrists, it was like... hold on, give me a second. I can't think of a cool name now, but it may be like High Cleric Wolnir, or, you know, Pontiff Wolnir. And instead of, you know, being just a giant skeleton, or maybe, you know, maybe not being a full skeleton, he had integrated himself with a church. And, you know, he'd become the church itself. Like, you know, it was basically almost like an armor for him. Or maybe it's more of like the 40k things, which is a giant church on top of a guy's back, but instead he has been integrated into the church as a way of protecting it. You know, and he's a holy man, and so, like, you know, and he fights even in death to protect the church. Something cool like that. Or, like, you know, someone else. You know, there's limitless possibilities, and I know it'll never... Oh, shit, I forgot the coolest part. It's... You guys are gonna hate me. This is where the idea goes down the drain. But you know what? It was a cool idea to me. And then there's an expansion. You know, not expansion per se, but then you can plug all of these characters in to the final installment, which is where the stories converge. And you know, whoever wins, tells the story of what happened. It's like a New Vegas end slide, where, you know, Supreme Pope Wolnir fights Vort of the Abyss, you know? Like, it's just, there's so many options that you could have for it. And yeah, it's a bit dumb, where, you know, it'd basically be kind of like Civ 5 or whatever, the Civilization games, where you'd plug them into the game and, you know, they'd have stats, they've had weaknesses and strengths based on what their backstory was. Like, you know, if you know, they're from the Abyss, you know, certain damage doesn't hurt them as much. And, you know, it's like, it would just be such a cool idea. It's kind of like, you know, almost Avengers Endgame style, where it's like, you know, the best part is you make the story. Your choices affect what happens in the end. The enemies that you know, that you either made along the way, or, like, you know, the heroes that you made along the way, or, you know, like villains and heroes you made along the way, you get to see it come to fruition. You get to see what happens and their interactions with other characters. Who knows? You may have a good version of one and a bad version of one fight each other, and it's kind of like the duplicates in Injustice or whatever. But that's just not from soft style. But it's a cool idea, you know? Like, there's so many cool things you could do. Because truthfully, that's a cool part of Dark Souls, is that most games, the world is dying. You're seeing everything a chip of its former self, you know? Enemies that were gods are now a husk and nothing more. Even the enemies that were like, holy shit. Well, I guess Elden Ring isn't, because, like, at least, well, you know, Promised Consort Radon. I mean, he's not even at his full power, because he's the soul of Radon in Mohg's body, so he isn't even technically at full power. He's just as powerful as Mohg is, you know. Radon and Morgott are, like, you know, the two strongest ones physically, I suppose. But, like, you know, it's besides the point. You know, there's just, you don't get to see these characters at their prime, which, if anyone complains, like, oh, I wish there'd be a game where we meet them in their prime. Do you want to just die? Like, do you want your character to just instantly die? Because that's what would happen. These are gods. And sure, you know, if you want to be a character like God of War that just slays gods, sure. But that takes away from the credibility. Like, this, you know, sure, Zeus is cool and all that, but, like, you know, a god that has been struck down and almost killed by, you know, a dragon god is a really fucking cool concept. I don't know, maybe I've just been yapping for the past hour and 12 seconds about just dumb stuff. But you know, it's cool to me. You have 6 minutes left. Oh my god. It started off at like 86 minutes. That's just impressive to me. I guess I'll take these last 6 minutes to sort of address the channel. Sorry I haven't been here. I mean, you guys probably, there's only like 23 subscribers right now. Hello to the 2 people that subscribed recently. I haven't been on this channel for quite a while just because, you know, none of the games I played got any views, but, you know, I'm going to start uploading a little bit more. Probably going to be more, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be uploading maybe the New Game Plus of the Bloodborne. I do plan on doing a little series on the Eileen quest, you know, because I've heard that it is very difficult and nearly impossible to beat the final boss of it. So I might just do a, you know, trying to kill him run. I'm not trying to kill him, but a trying to kill him, you know, series of videos. And truthfully, I don't know when this video is going to go out because this video is the longest video I've ever edited, at least in like 5-6 years. I hope you guys like it. You know, I put a lot of effort into it. Well, at least I put a lot of effort into yapping anyway. But I appreciate each and every one of you that comes and watches this channel, leaves a like or a comment. It really means a lot to me, especially because, you know, I've put over 192 videos out. And you know what? It's not some people's cup of tea. And, you know, truthfully, as someone who's been on YouTube for a long time, only put out content that you think is good or that you think is funny. I made content for years that I didn't think was cool or funny. I thought other people would like it. And that's what's caused it to take so long to get any traction. I mean, to be fair, the fucking edit I made on the Ludwig video was kind of fucking hilarious. Or the other one, the average day, an average encounter in Bloodborne for me. Oh god, you know what? I'll try and make more videos, you know. I'll try and be better about uploading videos. It's just right now I don't have a whole lot of time to make these videos, and I mean, as of right now, I'm talking, I do not have a job. I am if everything goes well, I won't be uploading as much, but also the quality will be a lot higher because I'll be putting a lot more time into it. And yeah, if you guys like this stuff, you know, tell me about it. Leave a comment. Please leave a comment, because it, you know, that way I can know what works, what doesn't, and what you guys like and what you don't. Because, you know, I want to make content for you guys that you genuinely like. I don't want to just pump out just shit that you guys don't want, that no one's going to watch. I mean, hell, you know, I'm guilty of pumping out stuff that no one wanted to see. Like the, I think, hour and 5 minute long just clip after clip of me trying to beat Radon. You know, that was bad. But, like, you know, I'm learning. I'm trying. 118 seconds left. We're so close, boys. We're so close. But, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say. Also, do keep in mind that the community tab, I might be posting some, like, polls and shit in there. So, do keep a lookout for that. I don't know why I'm acting so formal. I doubt anyone's going to get to this point in the video. But if you do, thank you so much for watching. I put a lot of effort into this one, and it's taken me quite a while to make it, because a lot has been going on in my life. But you know, I've always wanted to make videos for YouTube for other people to laugh at. I've always been a little bit of a comedian, if you couldn't tell. Jesus Christ, that's so cringe. But I got like 2 minutes left. I gotta keep talking, just because I want to make a nice, easy cutoff, and I promise I won't do a Markiplier bye-bye as I fucking sign off. But, like, you know, if you guys got any suggestions for the video, for the channel, or any videos, just, you know, leave it down below. I don't expect this to blow up. I don't expect even anyone to watch this, but if you do, even if you just listen to it in the background, that's still really cool. I mean, I'm not making money off of it, but, like, I know I sure as hell like having videos go on in the background so I can have something else to pay attention to while I'm gaming. Whether it's Creepcast. Creepcast is fucking amazing, by the way. You guys should definitely watch it. Creepcast, or, like, you know, Windigoon or something scary or whatever. Which, oh my god, speaking of a really good series to watch if you're into horror, but maybe don't want to start out with the super spooky stuff. look up angel hair, and it's hair like the rabbit. I'm not gonna lie, part of that got me to cry, and it takes a lot to get me to cry, but that is a damn good channel, and they're still in their not infancy, but like I think the channel was only, not channel, but the videos have only recently came out, like within the past like 6 months or so. So the series is still fresh. So you guys should definitely check that out before it ends or something like that, and go support them because they definitely deserve it. You know, they leave hearts on fan comments and stuff. They put stuff in the videos. It's just a damn good channel, and I would love to see it blow up even more because it deserves it. The editing is just chef's kiss. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.
貴様の拳などかほどにも効かんわい。お前はもう死んでいる。何？もうは匠でひぜぶ。